give some awards to all of you for the great work you've done. But before we do that, Ms. Leslie Beavers is here.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me join today. When Jane asked me to stop by here on my way out to Hawaii to work on the Mission Partner Environment effort, I jumped at the opportunity and said yes, yes, yes. So, because like Admiral Thomas, I too have been schooled by Jane, I think on a few more occasions than he has. And this gives me an opportunity to say thank you to the Department of the Navy for all the work that you're doing, and also let you know I'm going to pop up to 1 MEF. Sorry, I'm not making it to 2 MEF, but I'm popping up to 1 MEF a little later this afternoon to see the great work up there. So this is an incredibly fun opportunity for me, and I'm happy that I get a few minutes to share with you what the DoD CIO team is doing to help turn concepts and strategies into reality. And I want you to hopefully see where you're part of this journey and how you can help. And then Jane and I wanted to finish up and talk a little bit kind of visioning on the way forward for 25 and beyond. So let me start with that. So at DoD CIO, when I walked through the door, I started trying to bring some of my industry experience to bear and figure out how to stitch together the efforts that were happening all over the department, because there are so many good people doing so much good work. The question is, how do you turn all of those good small things into a great big thing at the enterprise level? And so that has been my passion. And it, since I walked through the door. So hopefully you'll see where you'll fit in. And let me back up just a little bit and kind of mention, we have a new Secretary of Defense. And in his opening remarks, he talked about we need to bring overwhelming and decisive force to the warfighter. And parroting off of General Carter's comments about operational imperatives and delivering force to the warfighter, this is the key portion of the department that makes that possible. If you don't know, you can't get there. So we need to, the information environment is so important. And our journey on this modernization strategy began back in 2019 with the digital modernization strategy. And then this past year, we hit the 5-year point, and we took a look at where the department was going, and we pulled together about 40 different folks from across the department, and the Department of Navy was a key enabler in that workshop, and figured out what do we need to do to communicate to the entire Department of Defense, all the way down into the program managers and the folks executing the day-to-day work and the day-to-day decisions. What did we need to do to set that vision in their mind of where we're going from a digital modernization perspective? And that came up with Fulcrum. So what we're trying to do in order to lead the economy, that is the Department of Defense, because at the CIO level, I don't get to sit up here and say we're going to buy A, we're going to buy B, or we're going to, make you go do anything. It's a matter of trying to set the vision. First and foremost, understand the warfighter's needs, set the vision, get the word out, and mobilize the commitment. And that's where the starting small and delivering big on the mobilizing commitment happens. And when I'm looking at the small efforts that I've been reviewing across the department when the Good Idea Fairies come to visit, I'm thinking about the technology and the process and the people, and I'm looking at it through 4 different lenses. The first one is functionality. Does it work for the warfighter? Does it work for the user? The second one, is it scalable? And when I say scalable, I mean beyond just the joint force, all the way out into our combined forces, so our small nations and allies, because we do not defend democracy and the West by ourselves. Then is it sustainable? You've got to have something, and the Marines know this so well because you operate independently kind of all the time. And the Navy, I should say, you've got to have something that you can maintain. And it can't cost you an arm and a leg, and it can't be so complex that you can't keep it up. So that piece. And then it does absolutely have to be secure. So those are kind of the 4 lenses that I'm evaluating everything that comes across my desk and considering taking it to the enterprise level. Because there's a lot of good work that happens at the capability level for individual organizations, and you have unique needs, and you need to do that. You need to solve your own problems, and please keep it up. But when you do solve your problems, please do it in a way that works with everything else. Because interoperability, integration is the key. So 4 things that, and I'm going to take you through a little kind of working level example in the MPE environment about bringing these small things to big things, concept to reality. First off, understand the need, shape the vision. Then we mobilize the commitment through the prototyping and experimentation and exercising. Then we have to get down to the nuts and bolts of scaling to enterprise level, and that's where I need your help. I need cooperation. This isn't something that CIO can do by itself. This is something that we all have to pile onto, and we all have to prioritize being interoperable and integrating our workflows as we're solving our own problems. So that's got to be a whole team effort. And then we can't stop there. We have to continuously improve what we're doing and plan on and go and deliberately set up the feedback mechanisms so we can get the information coming back in from the warfighter on the functionality, from the cybersecurity folks on the security, from the coalition partners on the scalability, from the IT workflow on the sustainability. So those are kind of the 4 big steps that I've been taking, starting with the mission partner environment to go through. Starts with cloud. That's the interoperability piece and the joint warfighting cloud concept, adding in the zero trust. And this is where the Navy did a really solid job. I think it was NIWC that was one of the first organizations, or if not the first organization, to adopt the cloud. So I want to thank you for that. And let me talk a little bit about the 4 pieces of fulcrum before I dive too far into my MPE. I get so excited with MPE. I'm trying to that is the reason why I'm in the Pentagon, is because stuff didn't work when I was out on the edge, and I'm here to try and make it all stitched together. But within fulcrum, there are 4 lines of effort, and I did want to highlight these because I'm going to end on it, so I'm trying to be all clever. All right. It's hard. Okay, the first line of effort within fulcrum is the provide joint warfighting IT capabilities, and MPE is 1.1.1 within the document. The second one is modernizing the information networks and compute. That's optimizing the DODIN. That's where the cloud foundation, the ecosystem that Jane talks about and schools me on regularly is all buried within that LOE. The optimizing the governance is the third one. Shocked me when the team made that the third one. But really, within the department, we have to align the bureaucratic processes to deliver on these outcomes. So the bureaucracy is real. We have to take it into account. We have to make sure we align it there. The fourth one, of course, is the digital workforce and the cyber workforce. And I'm not going to cover too much on that. We've got Mark Gorak here from the team. And they're going to be talking a little later this week on it. I think tomorrow or the next day, right? So what is the vision of success from fulcrum? It's one of the lines in the opening part. It says, seamlessly integrated digital ecosystem characterized by intuitive user experience where the right users access the right data at the right time and for the right reasons. And Navy's Information Security Vision 2.0 calls for the exact same thing. It takes those ideas, which the Department of the Navy influenced Fulcrum, and then Jane took them to the next level. What does that mean if you're in the Department of the Navy? And so that's an amazing document. I really enjoyed it. It's very clear, succinct, and to the point. It provides tangible deliverables. You've got the optimized pillar, the secure pillar, and this is big, the cyber readiness mindset. We, as a department, every last one of us have to think about cybersecurity operationally. It is not somebody else's problem, it's our problem. And we all have to be cyber ready. So that was huge. And then the decide. I mean, that is where we have the ability to get in front of and negate the mass that the adversary brings with better decisions earlier, faster, enabling us to be more agile, to be more effective. So, okay, for mission partner environment. So those are the 4 pillars. So let's walk through the example. What will get us the right data, the right people, the right place, the right time? That takes zero trust in a cloud, federated identity, credential, and access management, and attribute-based access control. None of these things are necessarily extremely fun or sexy to do.
Oh, for me they are.
I love them. I'm all over this. I'm ICAM all the time right now, and ABAC is coming, is next up. But those foundational capabilities, if we get those right, if we cooperate on those, we will deliver for the warfighter what we've been talking about since I can remember, the ecosystem that enables us to get the right information in the right place and be successful. So JWCC, move to cloud, NIWC, yes, that was the right one. Next step is edge cloud, right? We've got to have edge and compute. We've got to have compute at the edge. So within CIO, we've got a couple of operational edge clouds up in the PACOM AOR. We're working on the next one. And then there's federating the identity into those clouds, and that's where we've partnered with the Canadians to actually federate internationally the identities. So the United States has trusted an identity certificate coming from a Canadian system for the first time. And that sounds easy, and it took a concentrated effort, a very focused effort, and a very small use case, so that was small. We're learning how to make it big. And then we're also leveraging the lessons from Flank Speed. Huge shout out, getting zero trust in a cloud first out the gate. Thank you to the Department of the Navy team.
To all of you.
Yes, yes. So that is a version of zero trust. We're going to need more versions. So CIO is also piloting some efforts on how to do it with other tools. We can't be one. But that we learned so much from Flank Speed, and we're moving out on that. So we're piloting other versions this coming year, and then we're also moving into your Internet of Things and your operational technology area. Navy's leading the way on those zero trust pilots as well, by the way, IRIS in the shipyards, applying zero trust to the edge and the DDEL environment. So the work that Jane and the work that you're doing is being noticed, and it is helping propel the department forward. So now we've got to get into really federating the ICAM. We've started small with the Canadian effort. This is something that I pile on to every day at the Five Eyes level and at the NATO level. And we're developing it's basically a cooperation problem. The technology will do it. We have to agree how we're going to trust each other. Then we have to get it into documentation and get it rolled out. So running down that road in a huge way. And we're on track to prototype this capability with the Five Eyes by April. So that capability should be prototyped and fielded. And my plan is to have the reference architecture for this zero trust in a cloud with ABAC by the beginning of 27, hopefully earlier than that. I think we've got the rest of this year to kind of work out the ABAC piece and then run the traps on it, and within 6 months or a year after that, we should be able to field it at the enterprise level. And so what does that give us? If we've got if we've got the Zero Trust in the cloud, we've got the ICAM federated, and we've got the ABAC, we are now doing security at the object level. And what does that give us? This is where Jane and I get really excited and like to talk about the future. So Jane,
this gives us data level maneuverability.
Right.
Right. And so, and you said a lot of great things, and a lot of word salad came out for me. Word salad in a good way, right? So balance. You talked about balance. Like there's goodness about having enterprise capabilities, standards and guardrails, standard architectures, or common architectures. We have to strike that balance between that and what the role of the services are, and the joint and the mission partner environment, our mission partners. And what their role in a warfight is, and how do we, so to make sure, and we went through this discussion last week with the IL6 environment, how best to set up our software-defined ecosystem. Is it one thing for all of the Department of Defense? Is it common things at the service and the Department of Defense level that work seamlessly and interoperably together so that we get that high level of collaboration? And then you said complexity. Like our ecosystem is super complex right now. How do we get rid of that complexity? We have, right now, our whole model is risk and consequence of loss of data equals network. And in comes this great concept, AI. How many of your leaders are talking about AI and the want for AI and what AI will do for us? Well, if we're talking about large language modeling, we need data. Data in separate networks is not going to get us to kind of the deep insights and the deep learning we want from data. Right. So if I'm going to manage by data security by network, I'm never going to really optimize the utilization of something like that capability. Getting to the point, which is I got to rethink the model. I can't be about networks equals risk and consequence of loss of data. We've got to think about how we control access to data at the data level with attribute-based access control, with identity, using the zero trust principles. We don't do that today. We don't label our data. I mean, you said it's not sexy. Sexy would be the other word I would pull out of what you said. It isn't sexy, but it is to me, because it is really the foundation that lets us move faster if we start doing these things, labeling our data, understanding the provenance of our data. Like you said, it's not a technology problem. I think we've got the technology with our industry partners and smart people to get this done, but it is about making decisions about how we're going to manage data at the data layer. It's about leveraging that partnership I talked about when I was speaking between the cyber operators. Get to say a lot of stuff in this area about how we need to architect so they can see who's trying to access our data, but that we can also know that our data is protected. And so so this is an area I think we need to work together. And we talked about it last week with the joint staff, with General Carter was there, with Susan Breyer-Joyner from the Navy and the Air Force and Army. And we talked about needing to make this pivot in our thinking about our ecosystem. And so how do you think we should go about that? Like, what would be the right steps?
Yeah, I think, so my background is business process improvement, Lean Six Sigma, IT workflows. And I have, and driving large organizational change. And so we have been successful in the last year. It was about a year ago that I started driving the MPE effort very deliberately because the UCOM folks and the AFRICOM folks took me to task on that. And they were right. And what I think, there are some pieces to that effort that made it a success. And that was, we focused on a very specific deliverable. And that was zero trust in a cloud without cross-domain solutions between the mission partners, and with our mission partners. So how do we engineer that? And we brought all the key players along, so that the cybersecurity folks, the NSA people, our international partners, and we leveraged the Air Force as the executive agent to lead the charge, and then I kind of rallied everybody to get behind this effort and demonstrate one thing, and we leveraged the CDAO and the efforts in Guide and partnered with the warfighter. And then serendipitously, the joint staff had Project Olympus, and they said, yep, we will lead the charge doing the functional testing of this and kicking the tires on the prototypes that you build. Because it's fine to have theory, but we have to turn that theory into reality, which means we have to build something, we have to make it work, we have to try it out. And then we also had another serendipitous event, which was with the UK and their new aircraft carrier and wanting to put that to sea. So we had a target and a goal. So I think in this case, we need to really work on shaping the vision and finding that use case that is small, and having a department step up and lead it, and having the warfighter pile on to that department's efforts, and then go out and do something in 6 months, not in 6 years, in 6 months.
Yes.
So those ideas, so I'm hoping that, and so thank you for this opportunity to chat with the team about this. I'm hoping that the wheels are turning in your minds on ideas on how we can mobilize the commitment of the department, because we all need to pile on to this effort. We need to be confident that the new technology provides the security that we need and is also something that we can do the data tagging and the data labeling. From my Lean Six Sigma days, I think something that we fundamentally underestimate within the Department of Defense is the level of effort required to get good data, the conditioning, the tagging, the understanding, before you can even start to use it. Because if your data is not conditioned well, like most of the time and effort that I spent doing my business process improvement projects where we collected all the data was in just conditioning the data to get it in the right, to make sure I pulled out all the extraneous stuff, et cetera. And then you hit, on Minitab, you hit run the stats, and then you get your p-value, and you know if you're good, bad, or indifferent, right? That was super fast, but it was days and weeks of the conditioning part.
Yeah, I do think that and that has got to be a partnership with CDAO, since
Yes.
technically they should be doing that, right? They should be driving policy and driving pilots on how we get to data tagging, understanding our data provenance way faster than we currently do today.
Yeah.
It took NSA, I think, 15 years to tag all their data. We don't have 15 years.
We don't.
I do think we can use technology to figure that out, and I do think that that's a key piece. I also think, and this is part of the conversation last week, is that we don't tabletop exercise data maneuverability, I think, in the way we should be, to really understand how we want data to flow. We know we want operational resilience. We know we want ubiquitous access. And so what does that look like? Informed by modern technology, and very much informed by the operator and how the operator sees themselves working. We're going to hear from the Marine Corps and the Navy about with their blueprint and their NetMod plan. The Marine Corps' plan in particular, I'll just point out, really talks about data maneuverability to the edge, leveraging cloud. They've thought through their ConOps and how they want that to work. We need that we need that understanding at the enterprise level so that we understand how the services are going to work, how the department's going to work, how the department's going to interface with the mission partners, and build out that architecture that then the services can go and make sure that they get to your interoperability and integration point, because that is key. And so I said a lot. There's a lot that we need to do, but what we need to do is be working this together and leveraging the services to pilot. We've been doing some pilots on this idea of 6 on 5. How do we, and the Army has been doing some things they call SBU, secret but, or sensitive but unclassified, or CUI, and so that they can, at the time of need, push their data down to an environment that all of their soldiers who need to access can access. And so out of this also, I think, Leslie, for us comes the need to really focus on encryption.
Yes.
And that's an area where I think from an enterprise perspective, we should definitely be working to figure out how we, at that data level encryption, stay ahead of our adversary. That is going to be key.
That is huge. It's huge.
Huge.
Yes.
So I think unless you have other things you want to talk about, we could open it up to some questions if somebody's interested in asking, ask the CIO or stump the CIO.
That's not hard, by the way, just
Nope.
saying. Did I scare you?
Quick question. Actually, it's more of a comment. Wanted to give kudos about the cyber awareness training. It really does work. We found that out this last week when OPM sent an email that looked suspiciously like phishing. And we woke up to thousands and thousands of users asking us if it was okay. So
Yep.
that is really impressive. And as a CIO, I wonder sometimes if all the work we do is for naught. But in this case, it worked. So kudos to
Kudos
DoD awareness.
to everyone who, I'll just tell a funny personal story. I got 4 OPM messages like Thursday night.
Yeah.
And the last one, no subject, just said quit in capital letters in the body of the email. I'm like, oh, OPM wants me to quit. Oh, okay. So kind of fun. I think other lesson learned there, our cybersecurity awareness training worked. Also, what we learned what bad implementation looks like. So, yeah. So.
Good morning, ma'am. And to all of our leaders, thank you for being here today, and it's very insightful to hear from you. We talked a lot about the need for being able to tag, understand our data, condition our data. We also talked about AI. What is your risk tolerance? Because as we know, turning that AI, machine learning on that data will change that 15-year horizon to something a lot shorter. So what is your risk tolerance, though, with allowing AI to access the tons of data that we currently have?
Yeah, we are learning as we go. And I actually was having a discussion with the CIO from GSA about a week ago, maybe a little bit more, and they are running down the road with AI and utilizing it. And I said, well, how are we securing that data, and how are we securing the algorithms? And he had a very interesting point, and that was what they were learning was when they were doing the cybersecurity on the AI, you had to address it more from a heuristic background investigation type of a perspective. They were running those types of tests against the algorithm. And because it is more like a human and a background investigation, are they going to leak classified information or not? And so I think we've got a lot to learn there. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah, we got to take the risk. I'm like, we can't take the 15 years. I think that what this means is, though, you have to have good analysts who understand the data, who can do, people have to still be in the middle of this. AI needs to be trained. People are going to train it. But we've got to do it. And what we can't do, God bless the Navy, what we cannot do is and we'll come and talk to you all about this, have 1,000 flowers bloom in 1,000 pots. We have to really think holistically upfront about our AI ecosystem, build it with purpose, have those guardrails and standards in place, and build environments for purpose that everyone can leverage so that we can move fast. We will pilot the heck out of things. We are very pilot pro, and learn fast, fail fast, move forward. But we cannot exercise, especially from a cybersecurity perspective, what we normally do is that everybody who has money goes and does their own thing. In an AI and LLM, bad idea. And I've talked to the GSA CIO too. He did not allow that to happen. And most of the CIOs I've talked to and industry partners I've talked to have built with purpose environments to do these kinds of things. And so that'll
Yeah.
have to be a part of it so that we can manage the risk.
Yeah.
Good morning, Peggy Toth, PEO MLB. I had an observation and then a question. The observation being that if we really want to position ourselves to move at the pace of information technology, we really need to take a deep dive into the planning and budgeting process,
Yeah.
which is still very antiquated. You know, it's from industrial times. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. So I and my functional sponsor are all about let's move out and not take 6 years to do the next big thing. The biggest obstacle, however, is resources, money and people. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on how we overcome that obstacle.
So I think the department is really good at turning things on, and we're really bad at turning things off. So I don't know that I need more money or more resources. I do know that I need to change how I'm spending my money and my resources right now. And so that's the starting point. And then efficiency in the department is always looked at as either more money or less money, more people or less people. And efficiency from a Lean Six Sigma perspective is about making the people and the money you have more effective, getting more bang for your buck out of it. And that is, I need help from everyone in this organization to think about the value that they add every day, and would they spend their own money on this? What can they stop doing? So, are you doing, when you're building something, your program, are you creating a capability and delivering a capability that the warfighter would be willing to pay for? Or are you over-engineering it? Like, I love the Air Force, and I am a retired Air Force person.
One star. Let's not be
Well,
shy.
But the Air Force, we do, in our DNA, we like to over-engineer things. And I kind of think about the space race, right? And you go back to NASA in the United States, and we have to have a pen that will write in space in 0G. And what did the Russians do? Used a pencil.
Sharpie.
So I would just encourage us to really take a hard look at everything that we're doing and what can we do more efficiently and better. That means we don't have to do everything the same way we'd always done. And Jane, I'm sure you've got
Well,
thoughts.
sure. We pivoted from modernize to optimize, recognizing that you can't just keep modernizing without figuring out what you're going to do with your technical debt, how you're going to cattle drive and get rid of things. What we've also learned in some very poignant lessons just this past year with my Navy HR and some other things is that, and logistics, I'll use two business systems examples. It also is true for cybersecurity, which is why we're driving to cybersecurity capability portfolio management, is one, good governance. Someone's got to be in charge. Two, as I talked about in my opening remark, it is not a build a requirement, figure out how you're going to resource it, give it to the acquisition community, and then it's not linear anymore. Everybody's in the car together and understanding what we're trying to do and prioritizing the heck out of stuff, right? I cannot piecemeal and limp along money on things. I have to be all in if I want to get the capability delivered, and then shut things down as quickly as possible. But if I'm only going to partially fund, and we do this a lot in the business systems arena, if I'm only going to partially fund a business system investment, and it's not just the system part, it's the investment in the business process re-engineering, as you were talking about, it's the investment in the capability delivery .mlpf piece. If I'm not going to hold the functional as accountable as I'm holding the acquisition community, then we're going to be in the same spot we're in every time. We have got to change the way we approach this. And by the way, if we do, everybody in the car, with industry as our strategic partner telling us, hey, we've done this 100 times, we think you should think about this, we are going to be way better off and way faster. But that is a process change. And then the last thing I'll say is I'm a big believer in capability portfolio buckets of money, not program buckets of money, especially in this ecosystem, because because technology moves so fast, we need the ability to pivot as quickly as possible when we learn something. When we find out that something's no longer cyber secure and we can't use it anymore, we make hard decisions in the year of execution every year to get after these things. If we put less constraints on our money by putting them in smaller pots, I'm not saying giant pots, but pots, portfolio pots that make sense, then I think we'll be better off. So yeah, I had a lot to say, I'm sorry.
Yes. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes, and I would ask this group and the department, as you're going through modernizing and connecting IT systems together to save money, to understand that almost every week in the Pentagon, I sit there and I get a PowerPoint brief about we're going to connect A, B, and C together, and it's going to save all this money. And then 5 or 10 years, we've wasted hundreds of millions of dollars, and it still doesn't work. Please do not underestimate the complexity and the difficulty of actually turning that concept into a reality. And so within CIO, I'm looking at how can we set up some kind of a office for you to reach out to help get that expertise out into the field, because these large-scale integration modernization efforts, one-on-one, they're not hard. But when you have over 40 or 50 interfaces to old systems, it's a whole other ballgame. So please, I just want to flag for you to beware if you are headed down that journey to get some expert help, because a lot of time folks don't realize they don't know what they really need to know to be successful.
Okay. Well, Leslie, if you have, I think we can end on there. That's a really great ask. And I want to thank you so much for making us part of your journey. I understand you're going to Hawaii to continue the MPE conversation.
Yes, we're driving that to deliverables. I'm going to be doing some opening remarks, and then the team is working, and then they're telling me how they're making, what the timeline is and what they're going to give me by April. So
Great.
I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. I will just say, can you put it back on? I really appreciate the leadership that Leslie is giving and the willingness to listen to the services about how to strike this right balance between enterprise and operations. And
Yep.
so, again, thank you.